have fun at school. All right, today is April 15th, 2021, and the temperature is pretty nice in Minnesota. It's warming up slowly. And I don't think anyone outside of Minnesota would say it's warm out, but it was bearable this morning. A couple days ago, I did that video on Tim Burton, and today I wanted to just ramble about Sam Raimi. So I go through these phases with filmmakers where I get obsessed with their process and their movies, and I kind of like read everything about them. I listen to what they talk about and interviews and things like that and start to dissect their career and where they're headed and the kind of movies they make. And right now I'm kind of obsessed with Sam Raimi, trying to find any interviews I can, any behind the scenes, everything. I know a lot of people, Evil Dead is sort of their introduction to horror of that sort of like really nasty genre. But I actually didn't watch Evil Dead until way later in life. I went to a private high school, and when people were kind of getting into Evil Dead and like the hard R movies, there was this, like, I couldn't watch R-rated movies because I was in a private high school. I had to sneak them, and Evil Dead to me was one that I wasn't going to be able to sneak. Like, I could sneak Blue Velvet and just like fast forward through some of the parts I knew were going to be bad, or like generally if I thought a teacher was going to come in and bust me, or the dorm supervisor was going to come in and bust me, I thought I could get away with something like Blue Velvet for some reason, even though the movie is insane. It just didn't seem, it seemed like maybe most of it looked kind of PG-13 besides the really bad parts. But Evil Dead to me was one that I'm like, I'm never going to get away with this movie. So I didn't watch it. When we graduated high school, Dan was living in this little like camper place, and I went over to his place and we rented Evil Dead for some reason and watched it, and I remember being like, this is what everyone is talking about? You know, it's just an insanely crappy movie. Like, I love it to death now, but at the time I very much was surprised by what it was. And I watched it and was sort of turned off by it. I thought, this is what this big cult classic was, but the more I thought about it and the more I realized how punk rock it was, it felt like the way I felt about the punk bands I was listening to at the time and the concerts I was going to. I felt like I was in on the joke and part of the team, and I could feel the friendship happening on set and the way that Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi worked together. You could just feel it and see it, and it was so raw and different. And that sort of, at first, turned me off. It so slowly grew on me, and I became kind of obsessed and got really... Then I saw Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness and got really into what Sam Raimi was doing, and realizing that he had stuff beyond Spider-Man. Because at that time, Spider-Man was all of the rage, like Spider-Man 2 especially. And I think that's why I actually watched Evil Dead. I became kind of obsessed with Sam Raimi's work. And that friendship especially was one of those things where I'm like, you can invite your friends to be in your movies. And even though I had seen it with Kevin Smith at the time, because I was really into Kevin Smith movies at that point, and his career and the kind of films he had made to leading up to where he was at, and seeing his growth as a filmmaker. And he was one of the first that I really got into him as, like, beyond just watching his movies. I got into Kevin Smith as a person and what he was doing in the industry at that time. So then finding Sam Raimi and realizing, like, oh, I liked Sam Raimi. I was into Darkman as a kid. That I saw Darkman before I saw any other Sam Raimi movie. I used to rent Darkman and Tremors all the time. Those were like my two big rentals for like a period of 6 months. Became obsessed with the Evil Dead movies, and they were very influential in me deciding the kind of movies I wanted to make when I was at that period, going like, well, what can I do? I can make something like Evil Dead. And that was kind of that push in the direction of going, well, I like gross stuff. I like to draw creepy monsters and nasty things and really slimy stuff. How can I take that slimy and put it on in a story, put it on camera? Seeing Raimi's movies is what really pushed me to want to do that. It was the first filmmaker that made movies that were the kind of movies I wanted to get t-shirts of or put posters on my wall. And I remember there was a time, it was at Christmas, and one of my uncles my family was all talking about movies, and one of my uncles said, I saw the stupidest movie yesterday. It's like a guy with a chainsaw hand. It was on Sci-Fi Network, and he was fighting monsters, and I was like, dude, and ran upstairs and came down with my poster, my big old poster from Army of Darkness that I had hung on my wall. I would change out my posters on my wall. I had frames, so I'd frame my posters, hang them on my wall, and I always have like 4 up on my wall. I still do that. I would buy a new poster every couple of months and change out the posters, but my Army of Darkness one always stayed. So I brought my Army of Darkness poster down and showed him. He's like, oh my god, of course you would like that stupid movie. And I did like that stupid movie, and I think that was the moment that I realized, like, oh, I want to make stupid movies. And when a lot of people get mad at me when I call my movies stupid, like especially Scarlett from Rebel Without a Crew, she'll be like, stop calling your movie stupid, it's not stupid. To me, it's a term of endearment. When like Uncle David called Army of Darkness stupid, I was like, oh yeah, it is stupid. Like, that's the fun of it. That's why I like it. I've got to find my take on that stupid. So when I started making The Good Exorcist, I knew a few things. One, I wanted Daniel to be on set, make him my, like, Bruce Campbell, where we could have fun, try things out, and he wouldn't be nervous to take those risks on set of, like, well, I'm just going to flip myself, or I'm just going to throw myself around the room, or I want to do these things where I want to bring these creatures to life and play with them, that sort of stuff. And you can feel that in Bruce Campbell's performance, and I knew Daniel would go along for that ride. I also knew that I wanted it to be stupider than it was scary. One of the things I really liked about Army of Darkness specifically is how that movie is far more fun than it is scary. I think, they had a far bigger budget than I had on The Good Exorcist, but I knew that I could find that vibe that I wanted personally, that the comedy would pop over the horror, and I could show, like, we can make a stupid movie that has moments of heart and has moments of depth, and that all came from seeing Army of Darkness and following Sam Raimi's career. I'm just at the tip of actually finding stuff on Sam Raimi, and I love watching YouTube videos, behind-the-scenes interviews, and any audio commentaries I can find with Sam Raimi. That's the road I'm on right now. I'm literally at that spot where I'm just starting. So much so that this weekend I'm going to do a small, like, Evil Dead marathon and watch one a day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then hopefully on Sunday throw on the audio commentaries while I work. If anyone out there has any information on where I can find cool Sam Raimi stuff that maybe I hadn't seen before, send it to me, because I'm really obsessed with Sam Raimi right now and would love to know where there's stuff that maybe I haven't heard or seen before. I hope to do more of these videos as I'm actually, like, getting into the filmmakers, and maybe do some more, like, retrospective stuff on them from my perspective. I just went through my David Lynch phase where I watched every single David Lynch movie and listened to every interview I could find, anything on YouTube I could find, as many behind-the-scenes things as I could get. I might do one of these videos on David Lynch in the near future and sort of talk about that and why I got into David Lynch. But Sam Raimi kicks ass. I'm curious, what's your favorite Sam Raimi movie? Right now, gun to my head, if I had to say, I'd probably say Evil Dead 2. However, I am a huge fan of his movie A Simple Plan. That is a movie I don't think people talk enough about. And I also am obsessed with Drag Me to Hell. I watch Drag Me to Hell like once a year on the best night of my life when I'm like, everything is going great. I do not want this night to end badly. I'm watching Drag Me to Hell. Daniel and I actually saw it in the theater, and there was a bunch of punk kids in the theater. Punk kids, I sound like an old man. It's a bunch of high school kids. We were like in college or whatever, and there's a bunch of high school kids that were laughing at the movie like it was a bad movie and acting like it was an actual horror movie. And it was like one of the first times I stood up in the theater and was like, hey, shut the fuck up or get out. And this guy in the theater was like, thanks, man. And then now I do that anytime. Anytime there's people talking in the theater and not getting what the movie is, I will make it uncomfortable for them as much as I can. And I think you should too, if you're self-aware of what that movie is meant to be, or if people are being obnoxious. Anyway, that was a tangent. I don't know why I talked about that. Sam Raimi kicks ass. I'm going to try to kick ass today. I got to go finish this pumpkin short. I'm going to try to do as many visual effects as I can and see how many I can get through today. So we'll see how this goes. All right, until tomorrow, cheers. Don't let your meatloaf, folks. Keep kicking ass. Bye.